Well, good evening and welcome to Grove Farm in Ealing in northwest London. Another broadcast I'm doing as part of 30 Days Wild, which is a little project where every day in June people are encouraged to get out and try and do something to engage with the natural world around them. So this evening I'm down at Grove Farm, a little nature reserve in Ealing in northwest London, and having a wander around with a torch, which you can see illuminating my face at the moment, and looking to see if we can find any moths. So we're going to have a go at doing this as a bit of a live broadcast, see if we can at least see anything flying. I've got a couple of things that I retained in pots that I got just before starting the broadcast, so we can definitely have a look at them if we don't manage to see anything live. But we'll have a quick wander and see what there is to see, and we'll make a start. So I'm going to turn the camera around. You can see how well this works. You can hopefully hear a tawny owl calling there. You can probably also hear a police car. And what we're doing here is called mothing. It's called dusking rather. It's a way of searching for moths. Sort of fairly easy way. You walk around in the dark. There is something flying here. You may have seen something flying through the torch, but I'm not sure. It flew off. Almost certainly a species of moth called a snout. And just wander around with a torch beam, and in normal circumstances with a net as well, but I've only got two hands. One's full of camera and one's full of torch, so I won't be able to capture anything that I see. And here's something flying. You can see that flittering through the torch beam. There's a much smaller something flying. So there are clearly moths about at the moment. That may have landed. But if it has, I can't see it. And there are one or two other species, two things flying around. Here's something flitting around these flowers. Going away at speed, of course, as things like to do when you point a camera at them. And here is another little moth. So there are things flying. They're not the easiest to show. This you might be able to see down here. I try to avoid disturbing it as I do this. Is a light brown apple moth. I'm not sure the focus is brilliantly spot on there, but nestling there at the base of this nettle. Epiphus postvitana, or light brown apple moth. Very common species these days. Although you go back 150 years or so and it wouldn't have been occurring in Britain at all. It's a species that was brought here from Australia on, with fruit plants, I suspect, or with fruit, but has now established itself and is present over a lot of the UK. So as a general wander, there's a method of looking for moths. This is pretty hit and miss. You're reliant on things crossing your torch beam and either being able to net them or to have them land and be identified, which isn't always that easy. But what I will do when I've finished this little broadcast for 30 Days Wild, I'll go out, I'll finish wandering around here with a net, and hopefully that way we'll actually identify a few more things that I'm managing to do whilst we're live. I mean, there are plenty of moths flitting through the torchlight. How much they're coming across on the screen, I'm not sure. But there is stuff here. And this isn't the site. There's the tawny owl again. And sort of the cuic call. Up in the trees there somewhere. Calling away quite loudly. So that's always nice to hear. And there's a more traditional hooting call of a tawny owl. Is this moth going to settle for us? No, it's not going to settle down. This isn't, of course, as a broadcast, the best way to show moths. It's you are relying on things passing through a torch beam and the camera pointing at the torch beam and the moth sitting still. But it's good to get out, and I say I'll finish doing the survey properly with a net and with everything of that sort once I finish the broadcast, which I'll probably hop off in just a minute or two. We'll have a quick look at a couple of things I've got in pots. Hopefully they'll have settled down and let us have a look. Where's that going to be? So here's another snout. Possibly you saw that flying through the torch beam. It's flitting around the vegetative. It's landed nicely on that stem there. That's a snout moth. It's a very common moth associated with nettles amongst other things, which obviously there are lots of in here. There's a nettle stem that it's sitting on. It's called a snout because you might be able to make out the palps at the front sort of form quite a long, sticky up proboscis that look like a nose. So known as a snout moth for that reason. It's a common enough species, very common species actually, but still attractive. And it's behaving itself. Well, it's just off now. So that's what I'm doing this evening. We'll have a quick look from up here in just a moment at some specimens. Well, that looks interesting. That is another snout. So lots of those species of the snout. But I'm going to show you a couple of moths I grabbed earlier, if they're sitting still in their pots, just so we've got something to see. And then, okay, right. Just bear with me as I find where things have gone. So, oops, that's very annoying. It's amazing how things can disappear in a bag when you're doing this. Just give me a fraction of a second. No, oh, there we go. Okay, so what have I got here? Interesting to try and hold all this. And so I've got a pot here with a moth in it. See if I can get it to sit up so we can see the features. This is a common wave. You might be able to make out, the lighting is challenging, but you might be able to make out some pale brownish lines running across the wing. So it's a common wave, and this was flying around just down here minutes before I started the broadcast. So I thought I'd grab that to show people. And then the other moth that I held on to, which might be behaving, is another snout, and we saw one of them on the bramble just before, so it doesn't matter too much if this doesn't sit still. We saw one not confined, but there we go. Nope, it's having a flap again. So quite an active specimen. But there you go, hopefully you can see that there. a snout. There's also a spider crawling on my bag. I'll not try and identify that. So anyway, there we go. There were just a few moths captured and observed here on Grove Farm in Ealing. I will get on with surveying for them now, so I'll drop off the broadcast because necessarily I need to have a look at need to carry a net and see what I can capture, see what I can identify, which is very hard to do whilst doing a broadcast. So I'll drop off now, but it's another 30 Days Wild broadcast, and be back tomorrow in the daylight.